Welcome back to the BDGE Dynasty Fantasy Football Channel. As always, I am joined by my co-hosts Adam and Andrew. Andrew looking tan and crispy and caramel, back from thy dead. We are here to rip off a little buy, sell, hold these nuts action. Fan favorite. We will just be picking players based on their current value, some trade, some draft, whatever, and talk about whether or not we are looking to buy them, whether we're looking to sell them, whether we are just holding on to them in Dynasty. As always, just want to make a quick announcement in terms of the content schedule. Overall, we are shifting a lot of our energy over to the redraft channel, as you know, July is quickly coming up. So what we're going to be doing is we will keep a minimal amount of content on the Dynasty channel. You will still get one of these group videos per week every week. Adam will be doing one video individually per week every week on the Dynasty channel. Other than that, I can't promise any consistency really here, but we will be doing a bunch of group podcasts on the redraft channel as well. You'll get a lot of individual videos from me, but minimum 2 groups per week on the redraft channel. So that will be linked down below. And obviously, if you want a lot more Dynasty content, you can go subscribe to these guys' channel, which is also linked down below. Y'all ready to boogie?
Let's hold these nuts.
Who want to pause? Who want to rip first?
I'll go.
I think Andrew's ready. Yeah.
I'll go. Well, let's see. Comments have been saying that we've been taking too high of players, so I dug a little bit deeper today.
Snaps.
First nomination for me is going to be at the quarterback position. He is the 192nd overall player on Keep Trade Cut, the QB 34. We're talking about Gardner Minshew, quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. Going into year 6, he is currently being valued adjacently to these following quarterbacks: Geno Smith, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, the 3 above him. The 3 below him: Sam Howell, Aiden O'Connell, and Sam Darnold. As far as other positions, in the same range as Michael Wilson, Austin Eckler, Jaylen McMillan, Rashad Bateman. Okay. That probably changes a few things.
It does a little bit. I think
it doesn't change anything. I don't have a board yet.
Oh, sorry. I'm sitting here.
This guy wants to buy his own nominations out here. Yeah, you know what? I originally had buy on here. I guess the market is kind of sharpened up. I'm gonna start off with some fucking bullshit for you guys.
Interesting.
I'm gonna hold them nuts.
He's holding these nuts.
I'm gonna hold Minchie. I think I'm
actually not any different. Like well, I'll let you talk first.
Imagine not being able to think for yourself.
He's holding these.
I didn't even have a board for myself.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, Minshew on the surface feels like I want to buy him because he feels like a really undervalued asset right now. I'm happy he's going above Aiden O'Connell because I think he wins out that starting job. And I think there's a chance that he goes down the Baker Mayfield trajectory. Yeah, it's really, really something else right now.
I was actually feeling like I was having Tourette's right there. Like,
yeah, this is going to be a tough 5 to 6 hours if that thing is going like that.
The comments are going to be insane.
Honestly, it's low-key gas.
I don't hate the idea of buying. I'm leaning more towards buy than I definitely am for sell because you're not getting him for anything. Like I think he wins the starting job in Las Vegas. I think he's got a pretty good supporting cast, and he showed last year with Indy when he has a good supporting cast, he could do pretty well for fantasy. He's also bounced around a lot. You know, we've talked about him a little bit, but he's bounced around a lot, and he's just like, if you got him at the start of his career, like you've been super happy with just the times that you've been able to plug him in. Is like it's almost like a really high-end handcuff running back at this point that you can kind of throw in, and if he plays well this year, I think he probably earns, again, like a Baker Mayfield deal. And maybe it's more than that, obviously. Inflation, whatever. Maybe he gets like a 1-year, $15 million deal next year, which tells you he's like probably competing for another starting quarterback job. If he plays well, maybe they re-sign him to a 2-year deal. You know, some shit like that. I think
he's on a 2-year right now.
With LV?
2 years, $25 million, I think.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So if he plays really well, like there's no reason that he won't just continue being the starter there, I think.
He's like the best floating quarterback value that you've had. Like he has not had a permanent home, but continues to find himself actually under center and playing. He's like A-Rich last year.
He's like what people want Sam Darnold to be, pretty much. You know, they buy Sam Darnold, they're like, cool, I got this quarterback that I'm going to be able to, he's so good, he's talented, I'm going to throw him in my super flex. Like, never actually happens.
And he's got that Minshew mania feel. The reason I say hold, though, is because buying right now does feel still too speculative. Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but I also wouldn't be surprised if O'Connell's under center. I'm not confident enough to put buy on there because I think there's still probably a less than 50% chance, but maybe they roll out AOC next year, like, or to start the season off. So I can't buy. And what are you going to sell for? Like, there's no way you're selling him for anything reasonable.
I mean, I look at the other players around it, and when I do that, when I start to look at the skill players, I'm like, I don't really think I want to give them up for Minshew. I don't think it's a loss, but like I'm probably more interested in a Jaylen McMillan. I'm probably more interested in a Michael Wilson. I'm probably even maybe Rashad Bateman. I think that's kind of like a toss-up. I'd probably take Minshew there. But overall, there wasn't like a strong indicator of a huge player value difference to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm definitely taking Minshew over, fucking Greg Dortch or something like that.
For sure. And I think at the quarterback, he's appropriately valued. He's right at the start of we don't know for sure if he's going to start, and he's ahead of all the backups.
Yeah, and those other guys ahead of him, the other QBs, like I'm
Wilson.
I'm not taking him over Russ probably. I'm not taking him over Geno. Like I'm not taking him over those guys reasonably. So
For sure.
I think the only thing that I would push back on is there is still a chance, obviously, that O'Connell is going to be the starter, but I think the money that they paid him tells me a little bit more that they view him as at least the first guy up in this race. And I know that Antonio Pierce has talked a lot about how much he likes Aiden O'Connell and all this other stuff, but I think
like
he's
noise.
a motivator. It's, coach speak, whatever. Sure. But the money, they kind of paid him starting money. And apparently he was on a podcast with Max Crosby, Gardner Minshew was, and he was talking about how reportedly they gave the Colts the opportunity to match the contract, but the Colts were like, that's starting quarterback money. We're not giving you that money. Yeah. And they let him go to Las Vegas. So
I think that's low end, like very low end starting quarterback money. I think he deserves it. I agree. Like there's a chance AOC is a starter there, but I'm not actually concerned with that. I guess the only concerning part is like when you do have this type of situation, it's like Minshew can win the starting job, but he's also going to be on a super short leash. So the downside is that like he has a stretch of 2 to 3 bad games, which is super possible with him. Gets benched, AOC comes in. I guess I have confidence that AOC is just not going to play well regardless of when he's under center.
And when you look at the points per game last year as the starter for the Colts most of the year, 12.8 fantasy points per game, was 23rd overall. So he was a low-end QB2 for the majority of the year.
He only averaged 12.8 a game?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. That should put into perspective how replaceable quarterbacks were last year. That's why so many of these guys that just you got a job out of them, Easton Stick, Jake Browning, like where they had to get to for a floor to be a quarterback too last year was
Josh
actually kind of
Dobbs.
interesting.
That's kind of crazy. I thought he played better.
Feels like he did.
I think there was some
4
games.
point per passing touchdown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think there was probably a bunch
profile.
of games where like the entire offense just ran through JT and Zach Moss. They combined for like 35 carries.
Yeah.
So that probably goes into it a little bit. You probably had some real big dud games where I don't know. I guess I look at Las Vegas and I'm like, you look at their strengths and it's Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and now Brock Bowers. So I'd imagine they're going to be relatively pass heavy in that scheme. So like it can go either way. I'm not
They're
like super
talking
excited
about Zeus White pretty heavily right now. I think they might run the wheels off him.
Well, wait until I get to my candidate, who will be next. Is that? But right, I was just going to say, lastly on that, I definitely think Minshew has every opportunity to take this job. But the money that's interesting about it, like the Colts have,
these are like the perfect accessories because
instinct
as
just caught
erasers.
that. Oh, that's actually
I can cover my tan line.
Yeah.
Here. The money they gave
That's
him,
on me.
They don't have any quarterback like money tied up anywhere. AOC's on a really cheap deal. They basically have money to spend at the quarterback position, and given that they didn't really, their quarterback room probably is still the lowest in the entire
I think they still
NFL.
got some dead cap money in Jimmy G right now.
And that makes sense too. But I don't think they really invested all that much in Minshew, but I do agree that he's probably the more probable starter. I just don't even know if that's necessarily like locked in.
Yeah,
right?
He's just like they're looking at him like hopefully he can be a nice bridge quarterback for us. If he goes out, surprises them, re-sign him. If not, then it's like this is kind of what we expected anyway.
If you're in a 12-team league and you're looking for a backup QB3 on that Superflex team, he's probably pretty cheap, and he probably gives you 10-plus games of starting reps, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, he absolutely could. All right. Well, Zeus, Zamir, White, talk to me.
That's your guy?
Yeah, that actually was my name.
Give us some info, some numbers.
Running back 20 and keep trade cut. He is the 121st player overall. So adjacent running backs or in the range. Joe Mixon directly ahead of him. Then there's a big gap between Mixon and Swift and Henry. Below our guy here is going to be directly below him, David Montgomery, and then it is Ramondre Stevenson and Blake Corum. I like that. We've already got an underdog, a racer going on the board here.
It's kind of wild that like the RB20 is all the way down at pick 121. Like the wide receiver 20, I feel like is at pick like 35 probably.
The wide receiver 20, Mike, is actually coming off the board before the quarterback 20 now.
Yeah, this is going to piss people off, but
show them.
Sell/hold. And the reason why I say that is because you said the running backs in that range. Joe Mixon, I prefer Joe to Zeus. I think Ramondre Stevenson has an argument. David Montgomery has an argument. There's a lot of guys in that tier where I could see potential chance that Zamir White comes out this year. He looks really good. People end up buying into Zamir White. That's why I think maybe a hold is there. But for the majority, if I'm looking at a lateral move at the running back position, cross-positionally, anything like that. I think right now Zamir is probably somebody that I'm looking to sell in that group.
Yeah, I would. I'm going sell as well. If I can't sell him for a good price, then I'll hold also because they'll probably put up decent like redraft numbers this year. But pretty much every running back you named, I think I would probably prefer over him in Dynasty. I think he was like a fun prospect. Big, fast, obviously, but he's pretty one-dimensional. Like, he's not a pass catcher at all, and I could see them kind of like running him into the ground, but I could also see, we just talked about Minshew. This offense could have complete turnover by next year, and Zamir White's just like out of the picture. It could be a Dameon Pierce situation. It could be like, I don't know. I see enough red flags where I'm not trying to invest in him long term.
He's going into this is the last year of his contract as well, right? For Zamir,
I want to say this is his third year.
This is year three.
Yeah,
that was year 2 last year. He's got one more.
Okay, so not a lot of time left on that either, and not that I have very strong conviction about either of these guys, but Alexander Madison brought into the backfield, definitely better in the receiving game than Zamir is, and they've been talking a little bit about Dylan Wabe in that training camp period that they had the mandatory mini camp. Like, he's been potentially, I guess, reportedly been having a good camp. So
I would be shocked if they don't have someone playing the 2 and 4 minute drills outside of Zamir White, and I don't think like people who play in PPR leagues especially realize how valuable that is, because 2 and 4 minute drills at the end of both halves are usually going to result in whatever running back is playing that spot in like an extra like 5 PPR points. It's going to be like 3 catches for 20 yards.
There's actually nothing more frustrating when you're watching your player in that game and there's that stretch where it's really meaningful for the game and he's just not out there. Yeah. It actually is like a complete.
And when you think about the Raiders too, we're not necessarily projecting this to be one of the better teams. They're probably not going to be playing from ahead a lot of the time this year. And if that happens too, you got to think more passing situations, probably less Zeus on the field.
Yeah, this one is much less like a clear like player take on Zeus and more of just like hedging your bets on the situation, where it's like we've been in Dynasty long enough where we've seen 10 different Zamir Whites come and go, and more often than not when they're in this type of situation, it's not like a long-term investment you necessarily want to make. That being said, though, down to pick 120, I don't hate it, but again, relative to like, give me Demont, who I feel good about scoring 8 touchdowns this year for sure. Could play another 3 years, whatever. Like, give me all those guys.
I'd love Mixon at that price because I think he's going to be a bell cow and one of the best offenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Zamir White to me is basically, you guys covered a lot of it, but this happens for players that are more talented than Zamir. Like, this happened specifically, I remember Cam Akers very much, where you have the end of the season, they kind of get the bell cow roller. They're playing a lot. They do well in a very small sample size. And now the problem is the offseason in Dynasty and just redraft too, that sample size is massive. Yeah. So now you have the small sample size that everyone's remembering for 8 months. And I think that I've been a part of watching that little small sample size and trying to project it for a full season. And then in Dynasty past that, and you're like, this is a really bad process.
It's a killer. Yeah. Like the 4-week sample size at the end of the year might be like one of the easiest red flags to spot once you've been doing this for a long time. And Zamir, for me, like he'll definitely be the 1A there. I have no doubt that he'll lead the backfield in touches, assuming he's healthy. That doesn't always mean, like, if you're in a bad offense, you have guys taking away a bunch of the pass catching work. Like, it becomes an issue by that time.
Fair.
All right, here you go.
All right,
here you go.
Pass him.
So my first player is Jaylen Waddle, the Miami wide receiver 2, currently the 37th player off the board.
I can't believe you pulled this. I've been doing some Jaylen Waddle soul searching lately too. That's crazy.
He is the wide receiver 16. The guys going ahead of him, Brandon Ayuk is 1 pick ahead of him. Drake London a couple picks ahead of him. Behind him, it's Jerome, Michael Pittman, Devonta Smith. But those guys are a couple picks after him. Wow. Keep in mind, Jaylen Waddle just caught that bag. He's on a nice fat extension with Miami. I think there are a few different ways to look at it. We got a hold and we've got a sell. A little Celsius.
You talk about those wide receivers right there next to him. That's right about where I have it. I mean, you have Ayuk above him. I'm not going to argue with that.
Damn, I was out of control. I was ready to grind through that, but that was getting crazy.
You don't have to look at it.
It's literally in my vision right here.
Nah, you have a hat. You're Joe Burrow it under that fucking thing, brother.
You have Ayuk above him. I don't have any arguments with that. I love Ayuk as a player, but then you talk about the guys below him, and I'm definitely taking Jaylen Waddle over them. You have Devonta Smith. You said Chris Olave?
Olave was above him.
Olave's above. No,
Olave's pick 30.
He was Waddle, then Rome, then
Waddle's 37, Rome's 39, Pittman's 43, Devontae Smith is 44.
Right.
So those are all 4th round receivers.
I don't mind that. And then also, we're talking Dynasty, and you talked about the bag that he got. Tyreek's also 30 years old, and we expect him to probably still be good for a couple more years. But the reality is, when that age cliff comes, it happens fast. And I don't know if it's going to happen with Tyreek right away, but it is something that I'm keeping an eye on, because 2 years from now, it could be Jaylen Waddle at the wide receiver 1 role in Miami, and they could be featuring him the way that they feature Tyreek.
Yeah.
How old is Jaylen Waddle right now, actually? That's one thing I was going to pull. I don't actually know.
So he's 24.
I thought he was 26.
Really? Is he
Yeah,
26?
I think he's a little bit older.
Well,
25.
Okay.
All right,
So
in the middle.
We'll split the difference. Yeah. The reason I say that, though, like, when I say I've been doing some soul searching on my last video, he's a player I don't have any shares of. So you've already seen at this point my video coming out Friday where I go over all my leagues and players that I have high exposure to and low exposure to. And I'm like, look at the guys I have no exposure to. To your video point, like, am I going to regret not having these players? And then do I have too much and do I sell? Jaylen Waddle is one of the guys I had none of. But then I looked at the deals where I sold him, and I'm like, I absolutely want the other side, and that's part of why I don't have any shares. I think about it from the standpoint of then, like, production, what's going to happen. The last 2 years when Tyreek Hill's been there, expected fantasy points per game is not high. And basically when you look at, like, all of the advanced metrics on Tyreek Hill and all the advanced metrics on Jaylen Waddle, you're like, damn, Tyreek is him in this offense. Until we actually see him move on, which, to your point, like, he could end up either hitting the age cliff or getting hurt this year. Yeah. Waddle can be the one. But if we wait 2 seasons, now he's 27, like, at that point, it sounds crazy, but at that point, you're borderline old. You're A.J. Brown. And people start getting, like, very iffy on your value. So I was actually, like, ready to be like, I need to get some more Jaylen Waddle. But at the price, like, I'll take Rome ahead of him for sure. To me, that one's not actually that close. Only because Jaylen Waddle is still not the number 1 in his offense.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think both of their values, that's for a sleeper ADP. And I think both of them should be going higher than 4th round. Realistically, like, if I'm on the clock and I'm at the 401 and Waddle's available there, I'm psyched up. At that price, I'm buying him. I kind of just look at his resume so far. There aren't a lot of receivers who have come in and in their first 3 years ripped over 1,000 yards, right? Yeah. Like, it's a very small number of guys. And you talk about, like, the advanced analytics, like, Tyreek Hill's better than him last year and outproduced him in 2022, but Jaylen Waddle, like, led the NFL in yards per target, yards per reception. Like, to me, he's proven, like, the amount of versatility that he can have. Like, that rookie year, 100 catches, like, his yards per reception were like 9.5, literally doubled it the next year up to over 18 and became like the best short threat in the league rookie year to the best long threat in the league 2022.
Last year, does it concern you that the ADOT went really far down again?
Last year, there's a little bit about last year that concerns me. I think most of it was injuries, though. Like, he dealt with concussions, back spasms, a high ankle sprain at one point. Like, there was a lot I think you can rely on to be like, let's fall back on that. Had he not had the sample size of the 2 years prior, then I'd be worried about him. But, like, I think we've already kind of seen what Jaylen Waddle is as a player, and I think the floor of this offense is so high. Sure, they'll have some dips where, like, they don't play well against great teams sometimes, but, like, the game when Waddle was playing and Tyreek Hill went out and Waddle, like, exploded, I think there are a lot of chances that we'll see this year where he kind of takes over. But back to 2022, Hill went crazy, like 1,700 yards. Waddle also went for over like 1,300 yards. So I think they can compete together and play really, really, really well. So I don't know. Waddle to me just feels like a really safe floor guy. Maybe we don't see a ceiling until Tyreek's gone, which I don't know if I feel great about him leaving anytime soon. I will say, like, Jack, who has the podcast with Marlon Humphrey, during the Super Bowl week, they got a lot of players onto the podcast. Tyreek Hill was one of them. So they were interviewing him, and they talked to him, like, behind the scenes. They didn't get, like, a clear view, but he wants to coach full time. And maybe sooner rather than later. He coaches high school football right now, and he wants to, like, continue doing that. He's, like, really, really passionate about it. That being said, I don't think he plans to retire anytime soon. I could see, like, another 3 years of, like, really, really solid production out of him.
I think for me, the way that I view Tyreek Hill, and this is just me from outside looking in, and again, no inside or whatever, I always have felt like Tyreek will be done before his body is done. Like, I think mentally he will be done with football.
Agreed. He feels like one of those players. And he's come out and, like, said stuff to that point, and I feel like when you have those thoughts, you know, they eventually catch up to you, and you get to a point where you're like, it's not who I am as a person anymore. You have all these other opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, like, it's actually kind of crazy. As he's gotten older, he looks faster, more agile. It's just insane. I don't know if his body's giving up anytime soon other than, like, actual injuries.
I mean, he's coming off of 2 all-time years.
Without that that
he's
tackle
being
that was
schemed.
really unfortunate. I mean, the dude was locked in at 2K. It was happening.
Facts.
So I guess and to that point, that's basically where I'm at. I think Pittman's kind of slept on, discounted because he just doesn't have that sex appeal, I guess. But number one in his offense, Brandon Ayuk, I think number one in his offense if he moves on will be that as well. Rome Odunze, I think, is so talented that that DJ Moore's bad. I think he can actually take that one role.
But like Pittman, to me, it's like, okay, Waddle's the 2, but they haven't done a fucking thing to add a 3, a 4, a 5 really in the offense in the passing game. Had they went out and drafted Brock Bowers, I'd be like, okay, maybe there's a target distribution going elsewhere. Had they gone out and brought in like Curtis Samuel, I'd be like, okay, maybe something's going on here. But like Pittman, all they've done is continue to add. Like Josh Downs is awesome. They went out Adonai Mitchell, and it's like, and I love that for the offense overall, and maybe that floats Pittman's touchdown upside or something like that. But to me, it kind of feels like they feel so secure with Waddle and Hill that they're just not really adding anything.
And even though it didn't work out, they still took a second-round swing on Alec Pierce. So, like, they've been taking shots on these wide receivers.
And it's the right way to build the offense. But when I'm just looking at fantasy stats, I don't give a fuck how you're building the offense.
No, I mean, well, it's
not believing in OBJ or Malik.
Not since 2014. No.
I don't think there's a problem with Jaylen Waddle's talent. I still agree that he's going to be a guy that, like, his fantasy points per game all 3 seasons was 14, 13, 21. Like, he's going to give you production. I'm not arguing that. It's just I do think that the other guys, like, I think the Colts offense, if A-Rich is healthy, could take a massive step forward. Sure. That could benefit Pittman. But I'm not even going to argue him personally ahead. I just think that in this type of range, I want the ceiling from my wide receiver. I think that Jaylen Waddle doesn't necessarily have, and it's not his fault. It's just that Tyreek Hill's presence is probably going to cap that a little bit.
That's right.
And then also to the sell point, part of the reason is, like, I sold him for the actual last trade I made was Jaylen Waddle and a second, and I got back Jaden Reed and Kyle Pitts.
Okay. I tried to move Brandon Ayuk when we had our wide receiver rankings debate, and then Sexy was like, put your money where your mouth is, sent me Ayuk for Waddle. He had Waddle, was sending me for Ayuk. I countered with Waddle plus a third for my Ayuk, and then he didn't accept that offer. So, like, the third was a deal breaker for him, but
why?
I have no idea. I would have accepted Waddle straight up, or Waddle in the third for Ayuk. At this point, I was just kind of just fucking with Sexy. Like, I probably would take the Waddle for Ayuk at this point, but yeah, I don't know.
So, but you have Waddle ahead of Ayuk then? Okay, interesting.
Like, I mean, you want to talk about a receiver that can get old quick. Like, Ayuk's situation could change. I mean, you heard him with Jaden Daniels on the fucking FaceTime a couple days ago.
They don't want me, man.
Yeah, and I think he's fucking great and could be a 1 anywhere, but San Francisco's offense is fucking crazy. Dude, also, I love Ayuk, and I drafted him, like, everywhere last year.
Me too.
I didn't realize how few targets he had.
That's what I was just going to get to.
That blew my fucking mind.
That's what I was just going to get to. I feel like that discussion, though, is interesting because I think there's not enough talk around him and how elite he is as a route runner. His athletic as hell.
You don't think there's enough talk? I feel like everyone knows that.
But the target volume, I think when he goes to a new team, this guy could end up being – I'll never forget at the wedding, Eric Armstead told me that he literally viewed him and his route running like he is going to be the next coming to Devontae Adams. If he goes somewhere else, I could see that, oh shit, like maybe he is dude.
That's fair. Like, he could jump up to 160 targets.
I have no
doubt he could earn crazy targets somewhere else.
I have always felt like if Ayuk was somewhere else, it would be what Stephon Diggs was in Minnesota when he went to Buffalo. I think that's the jump that Ayuk.
That would actually be kind of sick.
I kind of like that pull too.
I think that's super
because
real.
Diggs was a similar player in Minnesota.
Everyone
as
loved him. They knew the route running was there,
right.
but like Thielen was just too peak at that point.
Yep.
That's a good call out.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
But like,
we'll see if he
who
leaves.
fucking knows? If he's like, he had 105 targets last year, but the guy averaged like 18 yards per reception. I'm like, if he's in the same situation, expecting the same targets, like, he's not going to lead the league in yards per reception again.
Hyper
so,
efficient.
Of course,
yeah,
of course. I mean, that would be outrageous.
Outrageous for a play, because he's not Waddle with fucking 4.3 speed. You know, he's a great playmaker, obviously, but like, him ripping down 60-yard plays is not going to be something we can rely on consistently.
Well, yeah, consistently, no. I do think he could be elite somewhere else, but I'm still not saying Waddle's a terrible player. I just, in that range, I want to sell him. Anyway, let's move on to who you got, buddy.
Yeah, in the theme of continuing to dive deep for the people, I wanted to talk a little bit about Kimani Vidal, the running back.
We had a good discussion about him yesterday.
We peeped this
in the video.
I'm glad, because if I was a part of that video, I was going to bring up Kimani Vidal, so I'm glad you guys talked about him. Currently, right now, the overall rank of 183, he is the running back 44. What that is in terms of value amongst
He was
the
like
running.
the 14th round or something.
ADP on South Harmon based on the drafts the last 1,300. He's a 1406 or something crazy. Which I guess math-wise, I'm trying to think. That's probably not too far off from
Probably right around
pulled
there.
from Keep Trade Cut right now. But the value adjacent running backs, the three above him, Jerome Ford, Raheem Mostert, Jaleel McLaughlin. The three below him, Keaton Mitchell, Austin Eckler, Braylon Allen. Just sandwiched in between all of those guys. Cross-positionally, you have guys like Josh Palmer, Marvin Mims, Demario Douglas, Gabe Davis.
Yeah, like that's the problem. Like Kimani Vidal has no fucking business being in the 14th round of startups.
So you're selling.
I-
Gus
I'm-
Edwards is hurt right now, reportedly not
I'm
going to be
still-
ready until training camp.
I still have
if
to
you're
put him
going
as a
cross,
sell.
if you're going cross position, like sure you can make the argument that like maybe I want to take the lottery pick on Kimani Vidal, but the video we filmed last night was like our favorite startup picks going in round 18 or later. And I got to the point where I was like, Isaac Guerendo is going in the 18th, 19th round. And I was like, I really like him. Like I was taking him in the third round of rookie drafts this year. And I was like, I was taking Isaac Guerendo above Kimani Vidal. And Kimani Vidal was going 4 or 5 rounds above him in the startup draft. I was like, in rookie drafts, Kimani Vidal did not go before Isaac Guerendo. But now he's going 5 rounds ahead of him in startup drafts. And I get it. But the conversation we had last night was like, he's a 6th round pick going into an uncertain situation. I genuinely think he's just as likely to get cut from the team as he is to be a role player this year. I think there's a real chance of that. Like if I'm in the 14th round, what receivers did you name again?
Marvin Mims, Gabe Davis,
Josh Palmer, right?
Josh Palmer.
Like brother, I'm not like skipping on a dude like Josh Palmer, who I think can be like just like a wide receiver 3 straight up in your lineup this year for a guy who I think is a coin flip to make the roster.
Pop Douglas.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's no chance I'm taking him over.
Yeah.
And I like Vidal. We were saying like I have a bunch of shares of Vidal on the swing of the upside, but the higher you take him, like the more risky that pick is.
You're not buying over the weekend, there was an interview that Austin Eckler did where he was talking about why he wasn't a part of the Chargers anymore. And it was basically because the new coaching staff wanted to come in. They wanted a guy that could take 300 carries and kind of be built for that type of workload.
How can I buy that when like every action they took this offseason says the opposite? Getting a bunch of guys who are injured and can't handle that workload, getting a bunch of guys who have never played more than fucking 8 games, getting a bunch of guys who are not workhorses.
Well, and then you have the coaching staff there in Los Angeles talking about how they think Kimani Vidal is built to take a workload like that. So there's just a little bit of buzz. Then that's the reason why I brought him up, is because there's a little bit of buzz. You got the Gus Edwards injury, J.K. Dobbins obviously off the Achilles. There's enough here to have fantasy managers in general interested, and that's why I want us to talk about it, because I want to clear that air and kind of see where we're at with that.
Like, I'm not going to say that it can't happen where he's getting relevant touches early, but this is one of the things I've done plenty myself of, and I've seen other people do, where there's just cool names, right? There's rookies that you get excited for, and there's just such a dead period where it's so long, where no action's happening really on the field, right? And what does that lead to? Overvaluing guys that don't have, like, that draft capital attachment is basically nothing. What do? You start like overvaluing not just that, but coach speak, because there is nothing on the field. Not saying that it's going to guaranteed happen, but when you're taking him in the 14th round, like, yeah, you're just outside of the rounds. I'd say the top 12 rounds right now. Those players are immensely valuable. 14, you're starting to take a little bit more of chances. That's still really early. There is a very realistic scenario where this guy either doesn't get enough touches or isn't good with the touches, and that 14, you've literally burned it. And by, I'd say, November, Kimani Vidal is totally a thing of the past. We don't even discuss him anymore.
Yeah, and I think about some of the other players around him, just outside of just running backs, wide receivers too. You're passing up on dudes like, give me, like Isaiah Likely, I think was a 14th rounder. Like, I'd much rather have a tight end that I know is already good at the NFL level. Stuff happens to Andrews. You have a real tight end one there. Minshew was going around later. Like, give me a quarterback that I can get for a year starter. Again, I get it. Like, the hype is there and it's real. And if I had to put money, I would definitely put money on the side that he makes the roster. But again, like in Dynasty, you don't get obsessed with a specific player and like what's going on with them right now in this moment of time. You're looking at it from a spectrum of like what is most likely to happen. And if there's like a 60-40 advantage, I'm going to lean that way a little bit. That's the way I feel about Vidal. So it's like, yeah, I think he makes the roster. I think he'll probably be a player this year in some capacity, but like the way he's spiking up charts is fucking irregular. It's too much.
It's people trying to find the James Robinson, trying to find the Damian Pierce, the Elijah Mitchell. They want that next guy, and they're reaching for it a little bit.
And it's smart to do that, I think, but like most of those guys are guys that you hear the buzz about during the offseason and like start to pick them up on the waivers. It's not guys that you take in startup drafts over like real valuable pieces of your lineup right now.
Well, that's the thing, right? The cost of acquisition on James Robinson this time when before he was going into that year, dirt cheap, 20th round plus a lot of times. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't be trying to find that guy, but the closer you get to meaningful players, like the impact of finding them is also not necessarily the same. So, like, and then that's where it's coach speak. The guy that's going to get 300 touches, like, just, y'all, 300 fucking touches, man?
Yeah, I got
who realistically is going to get that, period?
Well, Eckler said it wasn't him. So
Yeah,
Because it ain't going to be Eckler.
That whole conversation was weird. That whole, like, they were looking for a 300-touch workhorse. He's kind of been saying that for, like, 3 or 4 seasons now. He's like, I want someone to, like, spill me of carries. And they've been trying to add that to the backfield, and they couldn't get it done. And I think a lot of that was just, like, they want a 300 touchback. I'm breaking up with you before you break up with me kind of thing. I think Eckler's time is just come and gone in Los Angeles.
I don't have much faith in Eckler anymore.
I'm rooting for Kimani Vidal, late round pick, went to Troy, like a small school. Like, I like that, but it's no longer the underdog story in the 14th round. You know what I mean? Like, that's where we're getting to the point of just it's crazy.
That's what I mean. That's why, fuck it.
Fair enough.
Fuck it.
What you got?
All
Your
right.
last one?
The player that I want you to tell me if you're buy, sell, hold, Jerome Ford. Running back 40. Interesting. Running back 40, 173 is the place he's at. He is going ahead of Devin Singletary, Javon Baker, Raheem Mostert, actually. But he's behind James Conner, Chase Brown. Bye. What do we got? Talk to me.
All buys.
I think for me, he looked good last year when he had some touches. I don't have a lot of faith in Nick Chubb being healthy to start the season. I don't have a lot of faith in Nick Chubb being healthy maybe even by midseason. The way that he's talking right now in camp, he's just talking about how he's taking it day by day. And
by this time, you got, like, crazy hype normally around players. Be like, he'll be ready by training camp type thing. We haven't heard nothing.
Yeah, that thing like, oh, yeah, he's ahead of schedule. Like, you usually hear that stuff. And his is
even when I hear that, I don't believe a fucking word of it.
Yeah, and his is like, we're not ready. Like, I think he just barely got out on the football field, like, jogging.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what he
There
just
was a video of him,
doing.
like, running, but, like, jogging on a track is not the fucking same thing as cutting at NFL speed, brother.
Yeah, so I'm buying Jerome Ford. I think a lot of people are fans of Nick Chubb, and because they're fans of Nick Chubb and because I think a lot of us like Nick Chubb, we're rooting for him.
Sure.
And that's, for whatever reason, pushing Jerome Ford down draft boards, and in trade markets, it's making him a cheap buy, and I think he is a very, very good buy right now, and probably somebody who can give you RB2 numbers to start your year off. I mean, I just bought him in a league during my rookie draft. I paid Elijah Moore for Jerome Ford.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, Ford's being slept on. I don't have much to add because I'm on the same wavelength with you. I feel like even if another running back kind of emerges there, at worst, Jerome Ford proved that he's explosive, proved that he can be a pass catcher in that offense, and he could take, like, what we saw Kareem Hunt doing a few years ago. Like, even when Nick Chubb was a guy, Kareem Hunt was still, like, putting up back-end RB2 numbers consistently because he got some goal line work, he got a lot of pass catching work. So, like, I feel like Ford's one of the more underrated running backs, both Dynasty and redraft at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cleveland fan. I mean, you watched him a lot last year.
Yeah, so you're talking about, I'll give you some context. Like, I think with Nick Chubb, at least for me, one of the reasons that he's so likable is this guy he's the opposite of a diva. He hands the ball to the ref after scoring a touchdown. He's just super humble, and you don't hear much from him. And when that guy goes up on the podium, the first time you hear from him after the injury, it's like, I was really lucky to have the support of my teammates mentally. This is a guy that literally you don't hear no emotion from, and he's talking about how he needed support from his teammates mentally going through the injury he went through.
That makes sense. I mean, it's fucking devastating.
Just hearing him say that, it's like, damn, like, this is now the season's probably getting ready to ramp up, and that's what he's talking about now. Like, he's clearly not mentally, at least for me, in a place of, like, I'm ready to go seize and take this backfield.
Yeah,
he's not there yet.
No.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that you guys had to, and I say you guys, I mean the Browns, had to kind of rework his contract as well just to make it possible to keep him around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think
I think they did him a favor almost to, like,
from a business perspective, they probably shouldn't have, but, like, from an organization perspective, they were like, we want to make sure our players feel like we got their back kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
the front office is, like, heavily analytics, and I can almost guarantee you everyone in the building, just logically, it's a running back coming off a serious injury at this age, you let him go. That 100% to me, at least, is trying to speak to the fan base. Cleveland is like this loyal ass city that everybody keeps rooting for that team with no reason to. Yeah. Right? So, like, imagine now you saying, like, nah, this dog's done. Like, the the face
Chubb's
of the
like
franchise,
the
that would have
line
been
there. He's like the one player on your team.
That would have abandoned a lot of like trust from the fans, honestly.
After the Deshaun Watson stuff, they
Right.
needed the good PR.
Facts.
Bro,
These are the conversations they probably have behind fucking
Yeah.
closed doors, dude.
I can almost promise you that was baked into why.
We exposing the frauds here. Yep. So easy buy for Jerome Ford.
But
move on.
And Jerome Ford last year, when given the opportunity, also like did well with the work. But then to your point, like he surprisingly gave some really nice home run upside. So
He's explosive. Like he was always. I kind of didn't see too dissimilar of a prospect from Zamir White, where he had enough size. He has that runway speed. So if you give him the opening, he was like a low 4.4s guy, right?
Yeah,
if I remember correctly, he's explosive for sure. I don't know that he has as much like wiggle as most running backs do, but if you could play all three downs and be good enough everywhere, you have a role in the league.
He's got big burst, and he was on that Cincinnati team that was actually really good.
Yeah, Desmond Ridder, the GOAT.
Brett Coleman was pretty high on him coming out, and he's the reason why I like started diving more into Ford's tape. So,
Interesting.
Ford's cool, yeah. Let's move towards a more tantalizing prospect right now. Getting a lot of hype, getting a lot of projection going into the year. Good rookie year. I wouldn't say it was overwhelmingly great, but we're going to go to the tight end position, Dalton Kincaid. So Dalton Kincaid right now is the 45th player off the board. So you're talking about endish of the 4th round. He is the tight end 3. So it's Laporta, it's McBride. There are relative gaps in between all these guys. So Laporta, McBride, the very next pick is Brock Bowers. And then there's about a 8-pick gap to Kyle Pitts. So Kincaid is going right behind Achane's 41, Tua is 42, Pittman's 43, Devonta Smith 44, Kincaid. Bowers, Goff, Nico, Kenneth Walker. I don't think we've talked much about Kincaid.
Y'all gonna hate me.
I talked about Kincaid on my answering questions from the Discord video, and he was one of my spicy takes, but I am holding my spicy take.
Very spicy hold.
On that. My spicy take on that.
Spiciest ketchup over there.
Was that Kincaid can and will finish as the tight end 1 in 2024.
Okay.
So
that is spicy.
That was my spicy take. That I think Abdul Malik. I think he's the one who asked me for a spiciest take I had. That was one of them. So, anyways, I do like Dalton Kincaid. I think he is set up for a fantastic opportunity. When I look at tight ends and what I want out of my tight end is I want them to be the number 1 or the number 2 receiving option on their offense at worst. I think Dalton Kincaid coming in, he's going to be the number 1. It would not make sense to me if he didn't see 125 plus targets this year. I think he is going to be heavily leaned on in this offense. With that being said, I think in your tight end premium leagues, your tight end league, all of those things that you're going to be playing and where you're going to be playing Dalton Kincaid, he's going to have a ton of value. I say hold because I just can't justify buying at this price because the room for improvement is very minimal. And for me, even like a spicy take was him finishing as the number 1, and that's just a 2-spot improvement from where you just mentioned he was at.
Yeah.
So
I will say in redraft though, that's obviously different. Like he's the tight end 5.
Yeah, definitely a great redraft pick for me. I think he probably will be my number 1 targeted tight end in redraft this year, just early on. But I do think that with the minimal room for improvement, I will hold him here, but I still think he can hit that higher ceiling. I think he can pass McBride. I know you guys both like McBride a lot. I think he can pass him, especially with Marvin there now. Yeah, I'm going to hold him at this price.
I don't actually disagree with, like, it is spicy, but I don't disagree that Dalton Kincaid, he got like 90 plus targets last year, and they lose Diggs. He's going to get a lot of targets. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. I think he has an opportunity to be the tight end 1 this year. I would say, like, someone's going to cap me on this ranges of outcomes, like I say it all the time, but I think it's probably on the smaller ranges of outcomes for me anyway. I just think that you kind of touched on the point for me. If he smashes, he goes from tight end 3 to tight end 1. Now, what that would be as far as that ranking, you said he's 42, right? Or 40?
45,
45. So, like, what's Laporta? Is he like 30s in there?
He's
just overvalued.
25.
Okay. Oh, wow. So, I guess if he ends up being truly valued as like 301, like that would be, okay, then you actually return some value on top of getting production. I think there's less to gain, and with where he's already valued, I'm kind of just willing to, the reason I say sell is I'm willing to just take guys going much later. Like, there shouldn't be much of a gap for me with him and Kyle Pitts, frankly.
Yeah.
And then I talk about, like, I'd be willing to go down the board even further. Like, let me basically just forego this young tight end and just get production from a older, more proven asset that doesn't have the upside to capture and dynasty value, but it's just going to give me production and I can liquidate, essentially.
Yeah, I feel like Kincaid was probably like my favorite prospect coming out of the class all of last year.
He was fun, man.
He was a really fun tight end prospect, like genuinely just moved like a wide receiver on the field.
Hooper.
like the story can easily write itself. It's like Diggs is gone, Gabe Davis is gone. That's like 250 targets out of the offense. So like easily can go right to Kincaid, a lot of it. My problem is almost like what we were talking about with Elijah Moore. It's like I didn't watch any Bills games last year and walk away like, man, they used Kincaid right. Like I can't wait for the breakout. It feels like they never used him right. It feels like everything towards him was like a 4-yard throw and like maybe pick up 5 yards after the catch. They didn't use him downfield. They didn't use him in any fun way.
Right.
And that's what scares me a little bit. A lot of his big production came when Knox was also hurt too. And, that's going to happen as a rookie. Like McBride really only did well when Ertz was hurt kind of thing. And the passing the torch is obviously coming. I would say Knox is obviously a lot younger than Ertz. So there's still that hesitation. That's not really what's holding me back. But I think the other side of the story can also, be told where he hits that lower end of the range of outcomes here. But yeah, my concern is like them using him properly because we didn't see that at all last year.
I was just going to say quickly that to me, the other weird part was like, it was a sneaky ass 90 targets he got last year too.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that was it. I was shocked when I was going through and doing a bunch of research and being like, damn, that was one of the most targeted tight ends in their rookie season in NFL history.
Yeah, because he would have like 6 targets a game, but it would go like 4 for 35, 4 for 40, and you're like, cool, PPR, like did fine, but so rarely were you like, fuck yeah. It was a couple of the games when Knox was out, but I don't know. The way that they use him was not encouraging. Do I think it's going to be different this year? Sure. Like obviously the personnel is completely different coming into the second year, tight ends, all that kind of shit. So not fading away by any chance. I'm definitely going to hold. Like if I drafted Kincaid last year, I want to play that out and see, how he
I think they probably might use him more like in the slot, like a genuine receiver this year. But
I hope so.
I think you were gonna. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say like range of outcomes. We've said that a couple times now. Obviously, we think that, or at least I think, tight end 1 could be
for sure
in the range.
Yeah, no doubt.
What do we feel like the floor is? I feel like the floor for Kincaid feels pretty safe.
I feel like we should talk about that. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean the floor. I think from just like a 1-year perspective, I can't really see it going much further than like tight end 8-ish in that range.
That, to me, even that feels low, and maybe I'm
Really?
maybe I'm just higher on Kincaid, but
That I think will most likely depend on like whether or not the touchdowns break his way.
yeah,
If he just has like if he scores like 4 touchdowns and Knox scores like 6 or something like that, tight end 8 finish. If he goes with like 7 or 8, he'll probably be the tight end 5.
fair. I think he's going to finish somewhere between 1 and 6. That's where I would pin.
If I had to put money, I mean like that's for sure. That feels good.
1 to 6 is probably a good betting area, right? I don't think it's guaranteed that he's going to be a top 6 tight end. Like if I look range of outcomes, do we think for sure he's going to be ahead of Evan Ingram this year?
If I have to make that decision today, I say yes.
It's a good question though, to put it in perspective.
When we're talking floor, like I will not say that that's a lock. I mean, depth, absolutely he could, but like Evan Ingram was 100. I'm just talking from a target perspective last year, which we expect to go up. He was 10th in the league last year at tight end.
Kincaid, I mean, he's a complete projection. I think Hayden Winks tweeted out something like there was a list of 7 or 8 players who are going in underdog drafts now, like 85 picks higher than where they finished overall last year. And Kincaid was on that list of like 7 or 8 players. And that list was basically like all guys that we want to be good, but we need to see a little bit more of it. I think like Pitts was on that list, and there's a couple other players like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's where like the delta of hesitancy kind of comes into play, where it's like this assuming that his floor is like tight end 6 is, maybe too generous.
Well, because I was just going to throw out a couple of the names here. Jake Ferguson, who actually did much better in the second half of the season. Like I would bet on Kincaid finishing ahead, but the tight end and could be the second option in Dallas with Dak, the way they threw the ball, I can't put that out of the mix.
I wouldn't not that I'd bet on it again. We're just hedging all over the place here, but if Jake Ferguson doubled the touchdown total of Kincaid, if Kincaid had 5 and Jake Ferguson had 10, wouldn't surprise me at all.
I've been buying Jake a lot this offseason.
I kind of love him. Yeah, he's the GOAT.
We found the real GOAT. What about George Kittle?
I'm taking Kincaid over Kittle.
Dynasty, yeah, easily.
Oh, I'm meaning from what is he gonna
from
like
a target standpoint? And things
just
like
production again. I'm just the same question as
let's say they both play a 17 game. Like I told you right now, Kittle plays 17, Kincaid plays 17.
Ayuk is still in San Francisco.
Yeah, everything holds as it is now. They both, you're getting a full 17.
I'll take
who finishes higher in points per game.
It has to be Kittle.
It's Kittle.
Kincaid for me.
Really? The last 3 years, he has not played the full season. The last 3 years, 5, 4, and 3 tight ends finish. The reason I'm bringing that up is because when we talk about floor, the tight end position, it's really easy in Dynasty, I think, to get really excited about the young tight ends, especially after like what Laporta did. It's not a knock on Kincaid. I just think that the field actually still offers a lot of really nice tight end options, and that's why I'm selling, because I'll go down and get those guys that are kind of forgotten. That's the reason I say so.
Kill ain't never playing a full 17.
Never.
Ain't never happened.
And you know what the
And
best?
bro
You know what
just
the best?
had a core muscle surgery, and he said he's like down 30 pounds or something right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even see that.
You imagine all the boom weeks he's about to have? That man's about to be running
put
away
that
from the
motherfucker at running
field.
back. No wonder Isaac Rendell down there.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, let us know, man. I think it'd be curious to see what the people think about Kincaid. I like him a lot. I'm rooting for him. I think he could be really good. For me, it's a little heavy on the price.
I think I'm the high man on Kincaid here. I want to be buying Kincaid anywhere I can get him. And I know I just said hold, but like...
What would you pay for Kincaid? Or have you bought Kincaid recently? Like, what does that look like for you?
So what I've been trying to do a lot, which I haven't had a ton of success doing it, is I have a lot of Sam Laporta exposure from last year's rookie drafts. And I've been trying to down tier into Kincaid plus, but it's just not really been working.
Yeah, the problem is like anyone who drafted Kincaid last year fucking loves Kincaid. And they also want to see that through.
And they probably drafted him ahead of Laporta.
Yeah.
I had a team where I took like multiple shots on tight ends. Like I drafted like Mayer, Laporta, and somebody else in that class as well. I think Kincaid as well.
Those were the big three, yeah.
I drafted all of them, and now I'm like, I don't know what to do with all of these tight ends on my roster, but it's good problems.
You're not
Probably.
You're not doing nothing with Mayer no more. He's stuck.
Well,
Listen,
that's
you hit
the thing,
2 out of
is
3.
what do I do with all these tight ends? He's just gonna sit there.
No, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean,
throw him on a taxi this year, see what happens.
you're not mad if you drafted all three of those guys, even still. 100%.
Also, apparently, I found out this weekend when I was in Vegas. Apparently, my grandparents know Kincaid's family, so didn't know that until now.
You really buried the lead. I would have been buying him all offseason.
I mean, yeah, can we? I can't sell. I wouldn't. I would be having a totally different conversation. I know if he was basically family to you.
Fair. I showed them one of my videos. They asked if they could see like one of my videos that I've been doing. I showed them one, and Dalton Kincaid popped up on the screen, and they said, "Oh, we know his aunt" or something like that. And I was like,
now,
"Are you serious?"
now Dalton Kincaid's gonna end up watching this, and I'm gonna sell his ass. And I'm a fraud.
Crook.
Well,
Yeah,
he played high school basketball and football at Palo Verde, which is like down the road from where we were.
He must have been the GOAT basketball
Well,
player.
I said Hooper when you talk.
Yeah.
That dude. If you watch now, it's like really common the highlight tape you see from the football players. He could fucking hoop.
You know the other tight ends that grew up right next to me? Daniel Bellinger and Brevin Jordan. So apparently Las Vegas just puts out tight
We
ends.
talked about 2 of the 3.
Yeah, Danny B.
We just talked
Dorian
about Danny
Thompson
B.
Robinson, your boy, down the road.
Who's not my boy?
not my president. All right, we're going to wrap up there. This is today's Dynasty Buy Sell Hold. We're actually about to film a Buy Sell Hold for redraft right after this. Again, we'll go up on that channel. Make sure you're subscribed. If you are fiending for more Dynasty, go subscribe to their channels. Thank you guys for hanging out today. Subscribe to this channel if you want to continue getting sprinkled in. And we'll see you on the next video.
Do whatever you want, but buy us. Love you.